Hello Internet, my name is Vic. I want to go ahead and preface this video with a trigger warning. I'm going to be touching on a lot of subjects that are heavy because I feel heavy. I need some outlet other than self-harm. This is it, putting my shit on the internet. I've never been able to explain why I'm able to do that. It's kind of weird to some people because I do have anxiety. I do struggle with the way people see me. And if I get negative comments, I do struggle with those as well. I didn't know for the longest why I would even put myself on the internet like that. Now I know that it was because I have BPD. BPD is otherwise known as borderline personality disorder. There's 9 symptoms that psychiatrists have been using that determine whether or not you have BPD. I fit all 9 criteria. I'm known as someone who is on the high end of the spectrum. I struggle a lot with it, and it's a lot harder for me to maintain it because it's so deep-rooted. I plan on making a video in the near future explaining BPD in depth. I have a couple workbooks that I'm currently working through. If you've been around for a minute, you would remember my Puff Times where I worked through an anger workbook and I completed it, and I feel like it may have helped a lot of people. I'm still kind of processing that I have it myself. I was diagnosed in April. Since then, I've still not quite grasped the extremities and how to deal with it. Since I've already prefaced the video with kind of what it's going to be about, and the subjects are heavy and sensitive, if you're still here, thank you. If you're not, that's okay. All that being said, I just kind of want to start with where I'm at. White Deer Park, which is across from Lake Benson, and I was going to film there, but there were a lot more people there. Lake Benson, I've been going to since I was in high school. That was 12 years ago. Started coming to Lake Benson, and White Deer wasn't developed yet. They hadn't made it. It was just woods. I've pretty much taken everyone I've ever been friends with to Lake Benson up until now. So I used to skip school. I wasn't the one who found it, but there's a secret spot that I've always gravitated toward. There's a lake, obviously, but there was a tree that had fallen, and it formed a perfect bridge that hung over the lake. And we used to sit on that tree and talk about life, me and all my friends from high school and the next years of my life. I brought 2 people, both of my sexual assaulters. I brought an abusive, narcissistic ex here. I brought a manipulative, lying ex here. I brought plenty of people who fucked me over. I went to several 4th of July events here and ran into people that fucked me over. I've hid and run from police. I've done a lot of things, and I've been there at pretty much every pinnacle point in my life. I've been here with my parents, that side of the family. You would think that this place would have a lot of trauma behind it, but I still find myself gravitated here. If I'm having a bad mental health day, or if I'm struggling with something, I like to come here to clear my head and think and get regrounded with the earth. Now, is that to say that because I'm able to do that, I can do that in other aspects of my life? Short answer, I can. The long answer, I have a lot of unpacked things like trauma and events that have happened in my life that have kind of, broken me. I mean, to be honest with you, I remember the heat of the emotion, the strength of the sadness, the strength of the anger. I remember all my emotions that I felt intensely with each and every person that has either done me wrong, or I've done them wrong, or I exhibited toxic traits that were counteractive to their toxic traits, and we just were not good with each other. But I know I spent a long time just putting them at fault and not myself when I was the one who chose to stay in the relationship. I know that I manipulated also. I lied also. I did things that I'm not proud of. Just because I did them doesn't mean that I'm going to continue to do them. I'm 29. At 29, I got diagnosed with bipolar, anxiety, and borderline personality disorder. The bipolar I have, I think it's bipolar depression, but I'm not 100% sure. I picked and tackled the most difficult thing to deal with first. The BPD actually is one of the most detrimental mental illnesses that one can have. I was just thinking about it. I feel like this is a perfect example of BPD. Bringing these people here, even though the people that I brought here ended up doing me wrong or being abusers or sexually assaulting me. I know that I was toxic prior to being diagnosed because I thought I was fine. I just knew I was depressed and I had anxiety. BPD is something that you may not even notice that you have or do. It's not just abandonment issues. You switch moods real quick. I mean, yes, that is part of it. Impulsive and erratic mood shifts. These shifts aren't just like, oh, I was happy and then I lost my favorite thing and now I'm sad. That's not BPD. That's just you being emotional over something that happened suddenly and you reacted to it. BPD is when you may be smiling, laughing, joking, and literally a second later nothing would have changed in your environment, and then you just shift over to angry or sad. These moods are not small, they're not minor, they're not easily stifled. They're extreme and they're like heavy, and they are so strong and so like sudden that we don't have an opportunity to like push it back down. But instead of having that logical sound voice telling you, hey, it's not that deep, with BPD, as soon as you're upset, that emotion completely fronts. We call it masking, and by we I mean borderlines. When we are faking that we're okay, but deep down we're upset, or we feel like we're dying inside, we put on this facade, we put on this mask where it's like, I'm good, everything's fine, but you can kind of tell when everything's not fine and the energy's kind of like iffy. And that's always a thing that I've had, and I've started picking up on it. I've always wondered why my emotions were so erratic and so out of control, and I would just be fine one minute and the next minute I would be in this heavy, just depressive like swing, and I felt like I couldn't get out of it. I correlated that with being here and thinking about, today I'm having an off day. Things are weighing on my mind heavy, and I don't really know what the things are because there's always so much going on in my head. I don't ever know exactly what is causing me to struggle. Like, I know my triggers, I know certain things that I do not like. Like, for example, I don't like country music. Born and raised in the South, I don't like it because that's what my dad listens to all the time. Oh my God, I just realized why I'm having an off mental day. It's Father's Day. That's why. So let's talk about it. I've talked a lot about my trauma with my mom and the way she is. So me and my dad, I'm sorry. My dad and I used to get along. The longer the years pass, the fainter the memory is. And I think it's especially harder for me the older I get because I've been on testosterone for almost 2 years and 7 months. Like, I'm so excited and happy that I've been able to be on it. But the more further I get along on testosterone, the more and more I look like my father. It's not like he was really absent, so I know what he looks like. He wasn't physically absent, but he was like mentally and emotionally absent. I faintly remember, because he got off the alcohol when I was fairly young, coming in late and being drunk and yelling at my mom, yelling about something minor. I've often wondered where I got my BPD from, because my mom has OCD and she has anxiety, but she's definitely not BPD because she maintains a pretty stable emotion. She didn't do those shifts like fast and like a BPD like pattern. My dad did, because he came from a traumatic family. My mom did not. Me and my dad used to be really close, from like 0 to 7. And I'm gonna say it because I'm AFAB, but I was daddy's girl. But it was weird because I was always in context with society in the 90s. Boys fish, hunt, and, dress like a little boy. My dad, he didn't give a fuck what I wore, really. I don't know, he was funny. He always played with me all the way up to 7. It was fine. And then my dad lost his shit one night and ended up hurting me. It all changed because he lied to my mom at the hospital. When we got there, he told her. She believed him. I was crying, trying to tell her what was wrong, but I was in so much pain. I was just like, I'll tell her later. I told her later and she didn't believe me. My dad just isolated. He just disconnected, and I don't know if he didn't mean to, but then he continued. And he would take out his anger on me. He would really hurt me with words. He used to tell me all the time he wished he had a son, and I struggled with that for a long time. People ask me if that's why I'm trans, but it's not. There's no why. I just am. I was reading the other day about BPD, and it said that sometimes people with BPD will explore like sexuality and gender. And it kind of scared me at first, and then I was like, no, because that's been the one constant thing that I've known for a fact, like throughout all the years. The thing about BPD is when you're dating someone or you're really close friends with them and you hang out with them all the time, you start mirroring them. And I know stereotypical people do that too. I mean, like, we would straight up start talking like each other. I would start acting like them when a similar situation would arise that I'd seen them react to. I'd react like they did. Man, we're so alike. And then something would happen between us that I just could not relay back. And then they're like, what? I thought we were so alike. And I was like, actually, we're not. That's toxic. And like, I didn't realize that was toxic because I was always over here thinking I was in the right. And I was always over here thinking they switched up on me. They did me dirty. Little did I know, I was manipulating the cards the whole time. And I think I could not figure that out. I didn't know what I had going on in my head. I knew I had some sort of like neurodivergency, but I didn't know that I would have like a borderline personality disorder. Sometimes you can't pinpoint it because you think it's just normal things that you're doing. People do things that are similar to BPD, but the thing is, some people can have a little bit of BPD in them and not struggle with it. You could treat those symptoms, but you can't treat BPD itself. It will stay with me forever. That's something I'm still trying to get in my head. And there's like techniques called grounding techniques where you can bring yourself back down or make yourself feel aware of your surroundings. I struggle with derealization and depersonalization. Derealization is when you feel like you don't belong in the environment around you and you feel like you're not in it. Or why am I here? What is my purpose? Like, is this real? Am I in a simulation? Depersonalization is basically dissociating. And most people genuinely are able to dissociate on command. And it's a trauma response. And trauma responses are when you start to feel like triggered by something or a traumatic thing has come up in your memory. Hey, remember that one time when this person manipulated you into thinking that they loved you for a year? And then they left you for a drug and their plug, a drug and a plug. Put the plug in the jar and don't do hard drugs. Thank you. This is my TED Talk. Coming from an addict to another. Don't try the hard shit because you'll get addicted. And then you'll have a problem with it for a few years because you're basically just in the environment and you're so toxic to yourself that you don't want to pull yourself out of it. I'm not blaming anybody for being in that situation twice, but myself. It was my fault. My BPD got a hold of me. So the point of this video is to say, I keep coming back here because every personality disorder, like piece of me, I don't want to say personality or alter because I do not have dissociative identity disorder. I just have borderline personality disorder. They are two totally different things. BPD mirrors, just like it causes you to mirror other people to get them to like you, it also mirrors other mental illnesses. BPD knows how to read the room. And then BPD mimics the room. Every single front I've put up, every single thing that I was feeling, I brought it here. And I always end up looking at the lake at one point. I've already looked at the lake today, but there were people in the spot that I wanted to record, so I came here. The only time I wasn't like there for her was when they pulled me out of school, and I was mad about that. And she went through a year of anxiety. My dad went through a year of isolation, and so did I. And now I'm noticing that like me and my dad, we isolated, and my mom was left alone. So she was full of anxiety. I was toxic, and I know that. But my mom was toxic as well, and like we've talked about that several times, and I've apologized, and she just won't apologize. She'll just say, I just went through it. And I'm like, me too. You pulled me out of school for liking women. And you've said women are attractive. Make it make sense. Mom manipulated me. She gaslit me. My dad was abusive physically. My mom was never physically abusive, but she was emotionally and mentally abusive. And she has mental illnesses, but she failed to tell me that I could have them too, and failed to get me diagnosed, and failed to get me on medication. My childhood wasn't all bad. I don't want this to just sound like an entire shit show. I have a lot of memories from my childhood that I fondly cherish, but those memories are always where I'm away from my family, friends, or on my own. I used to explore on my own all the time. I'm an only child. So I was like used to being alone and having to find something to do. And so I did. I fucked off and went in the woods. And you know what? Maybe that's why I'm drawn here. Because you really do make your own family. I'm making steps to be a better me. I do things now to help get me out rather than just circle it over and over and over because I'm familiar with the pain. Spread awareness. I don't even care about money. I don't want to make money off YouTube. But I do want to make people see and understand that people can live with BPD and people can get through trauma and anxiety and people can be trans in a cis world. I need money for top surgery though. So if you're in a donating mood or you know anyone that will, go check it out. I'll put a link in the bio, but that's what it looks like. Stay healthy.